Hey, good evening. I'm David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe. Welcome to the debate between the candidates for the Democratic nomination for state Senate in New Jersey's 37th district between Assemblywoman Valerie Venneri-Huddle and Assemblyman Gordon Johnson. This will be an hour-long debate sponsored by the Globe. It's coming to you virtually with each candidate in their own location. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make an opening statement. After that, I'll ask a series of questions related to state and local issues and the campaign for Senate. I ask you both to please stick in your allotted amount of time. If a candidate goes too long, I'll hold up my hand and wave, and if that doesn't work, then I'll interrupt. I want to make it clear these questions are mine. I have not discussed them with anyone. There will be an appropriate mix of policy and process questions. And I recognize that both candidates have a similar voting record in the legislature over the last 16 years. So I think it's appropriate, and I'll determine that we'll ask some questions that might seek to find some difference between the two candidates. And accordingly, I'll make my best effort to ask questions from the point of view of a Democratic primary voter. Now, questions will alternate between the two candidates. They'll do so at my discretion. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. If a candidate is attacked during the response, his or her opponent will receive an additional 30 seconds to respond. And to be clear, there's a point where the volley is over and we'll move on to the next question. And I will reserve the option of a follow-up question before moving on. And my job is to be the moderator. It's not to take sides. It's not to give my opinion. So I will do exactly that. I'll moderate. I will try to keep this debate on track, but I'll look to each of you to make sure that what your opponent says is based on fact. Now, each candidate will also have a chance to ask their opponent one question. The candidates will have 30 seconds to ask their question, and the opponent will have 60 seconds to respond, and candidates will have 90 seconds for a closing statement. We conducted a virtual coin toss before the debate. Assemblywoman Venneri-Huddle won the coin toss. She has opted to give the second opening statement. So, Assemblyman Johnson, I'll ask you to begin.
Okay, thank you. And good evening, everyone. Good evening, David. Good evening, Assemblywoman Huddle. I'm glad to be with you this evening. David, I do not envy your task. You have a difficult job trying to find daylight between two people who have worked closely together for over a decade. Where, apart from a few issues, such as Assemblywoman's lack of support for legalization of marijuana, and all the positive criminal justice implications that we have for our Black and brown communities, there's really real little difference in our record. I've been a strong ally working alongside Senator Weinberg as she led our legislature in expanding the rights of those in the LGBTQ community, passing the Equal Pay Act in the country, making New Jersey a national leader in gun control, strengthening our laws against discrimination, increasing government transparency, and protecting survivors of sexual harassment and assault. With my background, I spent many years focusing on reforming the criminal justice system, changing the way we police in the state, and addressing disparities in the communities of color when it comes to economic opportunities, environmental conditions, healthcare, maternal care, and education. In some ways, it's strange to run against your colleague. I have tremendous respect for Valerie, but our campaign slogan is some glass, as though our district Senate seat hasn't been held by a white woman in 15 years. So I want to make it clear, there's only one campaign that'll make history this year. In the history of our state Senate, there's never been a Black representative in Bergen County. Not to mention my running mates, who will both make their own history. Sharma Haider will be the first Muslim and the first Pakistani American woman in Trenton's history, and Ellen Park will be the first Korean American woman to have a seat in the legislature. It's 2021. It's time for diversity of our district to be reflected in the State House. I am grateful to be here and have this opportunity to discuss the issues important to the residents of Bergen County. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman, I'll ask you to make your opening statement.
Thank you, David, and thank you to New Jersey Globe for holding this debate tonight. You know, I'm happy to have the opportunity to present my record and platform to the voters. You know, New Jersey Spotlight just released a study that out of the 4 open state Senate seats in New Jersey, there are 11 candidates. Only one of those candidates is a woman. That woman is me. I'm running for state Senate because I want to keep a woman's voice in the Senate. But it's much more than that. I'm running because I want to continue to do the hard work of making an impact in people's lives. And as your Assemblywoman for 15 years, I've done just that. That's why I fought to pass the nation's toughest anti-bullying law and the nation's toughest law to combat human trafficking. I've worked to prevent overdoses and laws to combat and help people get into treatment. I fought for years to protect individuals with disabilities and from abuse and neglect. You know, and during the height of this pandemic, I authored landmark legislation to protect our loved ones in nursing homes, enacting nursing home legislation reform and demanding accountability for those responsible in keeping our seniors safe. You know, right now I'm championing reforms to protect women's rights, authoring legislation to codify Roe v. Wade into law, so a Trump-dominated Supreme Court can take away a woman's right to choose. And recently, Governor Murphy signed 7 of my bills into law to protect victims of sexual assault, expanding their rights under the law. And you know what? A record is about more than how you vote. It's about who you fight for. You can't just be a vote. You have to be a voice. And I use my voice to be your voice. And I'm running for state Senate to keep fighting, to keep your voices being heard. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Assemblywoman, let me ask you the first question. You have criticized the process that led to Mr. Johnson receiving the Democratic organization endorsement in Bergen County, but you've run on an organization line in your 10 previous primaries. So should that line be eliminated? That's my first question. Should the movement to end organization lines be enacted? And secondly, if you win this election and you run again in 2023, when the Senate heads the ticket, have you ruled out seeking the organization line in the future?
Well, you know, David, let me just say this. If I walked away every time a man in power told me to back off, I would never have been able to become a proven progressive leader in the Assembly. But I never walk away. And I think, David, you were there and you remember my history. In 2005, I fought against the organization and won. In 2007, I fought against the organization line and won. However, I wanted to play by the rules. And the cards were stacked against me. I wanted a fair and open process. You know, I fought and authored the Party Democracy Act. I fought for open transparency at the convention. I don't believe that it was fair and transparent when my opponent's running mates were selected on Sunday night and the convention was held on Monday morning. I'm fighting for a fair and open process, and I'm not going to have anyone tell me and make a decision for me to stay in the Assembly and have someone else anointed to the Senate. And I'm also fighting for my 2 colleagues who are running with me because they were told to wait their turn. That is just unacceptable in 2021. So I'm fighting for an open process. If my opponent wants to say it's fair and open, we were never vetted. I called up municipal chairs. A lot of them had to get permission and they were afraid to endorse me.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman Johnson, I'll ask you if you'd like to respond to that.
Yes, I just respond by saying, first of all, that I follow the rules that were set forth by the Democratic organization in Bergen County. I went out to my 13 towns, well, 12 or 13 towns, spoke to the county committee, to people there, spoke to the municipal chairs there, and spoke to the people in these towns to get their support, just a grassroots effort. That is how you run a campaign. And for all these years that we've both been in the Assembly, this system that we have in the Bergen County Democratic Party was never an issue until this year. And I have to ask, I have to, I wonder, for a person to donate $75,000 to the Democratic Committee of Bergen County all these years and then say that you don't support them, I'm kind of, I'm not quite understanding how that could happen. $75,000 donated to this committee, and all of a sudden this year, there's an issue. So I followed the rules. I went out, got the votes, grassroots. And by the way, I was the first to endorse Governor Murphy before there was a line. I didn't wait for a line. I went out there and endorsed him because I thought he was the right person for the job. So it's about people. It's about relationships, and it's about who you feel is best to run in this government.
Okay,
You know,
thank
can I just
Yes, you're
respond
entitled to
that
30
quickly?
seconds. So
Because
absolutely.
I
Yes.
am a loyal member of the Democratic organization, number one. I have been a proud member of this organization and have supported Democrats. However, Gordon, do you not think I did the work in calling the municipal chairs and the county committee? I did. And they told me straight out, and I can tell you exactly the quote, Valerie, the deal has been made, stay in the assembly. You know what, Gordon? That's not a fair and open process. And you know, if you think that we have continued to be on the organization, then I think you forgot 2005 and 2007 when I ran against the organization. I'm an independent voice. I work for the people of this district. And the best thing for me is to bring it to the voters of District 37. Primaries are healthy. Let the person with the best resume win. Let the people have the opportunity to see and hear from us. No one in that convention hall on Monday morning was able to hear from any opposition. The candidates, after your first ticket imploded, the candidates were set Sunday night, minutes before the convention was set.
And someone, while we're talking about process, have you made a commitment to support anybody for Senate president if you're elected, if you're a senator in November after this election?
I have not. And that race is so far away right now. I'm not even considering that. I'm trying to get through a primary right now. So the answer to your question is no, I have not.
Okay, Assemblywoman, have you made any commitments to supporting any
You know,
Senate president?
This is a political campaign, and I think everyone knows me. Once I get to Trenton, I work with leadership. I'm not here to burn down the house. However, it's very, I would say, suspicious. I've gotten a few mail pieces from some, I guess, super PACs. I don't know, the address was Trenton, and when I looked it up, the people down there were from Camden. I don't know why Camden's involved up in Bergen County.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman Johnson, a woman from your hometown has accused you of making inappropriate sexual comments to her in 2008. And my question is that true? And have you made unwanted advances to women during your time as a public official?
The answer to that question is no. And people who know me, know my reputation, know about me, know that's not my personality. Getting back to Dr. Paul, I do not remember that conversation from 13 years ago. When I heard about this email that was out there 13 years ago, I reached out to Dr. Paul to resolve it. But people would know I would never, ever do anything to make people feel that way. It's inconsistent with who I am as a person and a legislator. So that's why I champion a series of bills this session to ensure that women are treated with dignity and by the criminal justice system when they're reporting any type of sexual harassment and assault. So that's it.
Thank you. Assemblywoman, would you like to say anything about this?
Well, Gordon, look, you know, David brought it up. There was actually a quote on social media, and I'm quoting her. She said, "Here's what Gordon did. He abused his power and he tried to barter his city council seat for sex with me." Well, you deny that. So are you saying what she said is not true?
Okay, and Assemblyman, let me give you 30 seconds to respond to that.
What I'm saying is, if that were true, I think she said she notified you too about this 13 years ago, and you didn't respond to it. However, I'm saying I don't remember the conversation or the text of the conversation, and Dr. Paul is supporting me for state senate.
But Gordon, that's not an answer that you don't remember something someone is documented in an email saying and on her social media page. And when you talk about standing up for victims, those were my bills. And I would hope that you do believe and stand up for victims. So I just don't know if she's saying something, she made it up because, actually, that's the sexual harassment defense. You call the accuser a liar or, she's nuts, whatever, but she said it and it's documented and I didn't bring it up. And those are her words.
Assemblyman, let me give you the last word on that if you have anything more to say.
I'm not going to disparage Dr. Paul, okay? I called her to straighten it, to rectify the situation. So I don't remember saying anything like that to anyone, and even to her.
Okay, thank you. Assemblywoman, there are few legislative districts in New Jersey where economic inequality is more disparate than the 37th. You represent Alpine, one of the wealthiest communities in the state, and you represent Hackensack, where more than 13% of the residents live below the poverty level. Sometimes as a legislator, you have to choose between the rich and the poor. What factors do you weigh in making those decisions?
I was chair of Human Services for 8 years. I have always been the voice for the working families of this district. I will tell you that during the pandemic, when we had to take care of our loved ones in nursing homes, I stood up for nurses' aides making minimum wage to make sure that they were able to get fair wages. I have always been a supporter of economic value in the community. It's not just about, fighting for things. I authored many laws, and I will tell you that I fought for the minimum wage, to raise the minimum wage to $15. We have done many things, and I think this district actually has felt most of the impact of the laws that I authored and that was signed into law. And I will tell you, when you look at the endorsements that I have received from CWA, SCIU, Working Families, that speaks volumes, HPAE, that I was in the trenches with these workers to protect them, keep them safe, and give them a fair and equitable shot at their jobs.
Thank you. Assemblyman Johnson, I want to hear your view on how you weigh a decision that affects the rich and the poor differently.
Yes. Well, first of all, I like being with the people. I got to be with the people. I've walked the streets of Inglewood, the housing developments in Inglewood and Rock Creek. I've been to the Martin Luther King development. I've been to Park View in Inglewood. I walked the streets of First Street in Hackensack. I've been to the different, to speak with the people who are the lower echelon of our when it comes to income in the 37th district, Hackensack, Inglewood. So I've been with these people. I've talked to them. I work with them, and then bring that back to Trenton as their advocate, their voice in Trenton. So working with the families, and also following the mentorship of Senator Weinberg, who's also out there endorsing, who also endorsed me, by the way, Senator Weinberg, but following her mentorship with the people. You have to be with the people, whether they be Latino, or African-American, or Asian. You have to be with them to feel what their needs are, and not just legislate something from an office building. So I've been there, and I then take that to Trenton and then turn that into legislation.
Thank you.
If I could just add to that, David,
you weren't really attacked, but go ahead. But then I'll give.
No,
it's an important issue. Go ahead.
I just like to say that when I talk to people in the district and around the state, people with disabilities, people that have been marginalized, I have done the work to pass laws to protect them. It's one thing hanging out and socializing. It's another thing to go down and do the work to protect and listen and hear them and see what their needs are. And I think my laws reflect that.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman, let me give you the last word on that.
I'm just with the people, David.
Okay.
I don't count on them. I'm with them. I get into their culture. I get into their language. I'm with them, and take their needs, their priorities back to Trenton.
Assemblyman, some people say that in order to fully dismantle systemic racism, laws need to be changed. So if you're a senator and your party's leadership comes to you and says, Senator, write a law that will fix racial injustices and inequalities in New Jersey, what would Gordon Johnson's law look like?
Well, that is not a very simple answer. That is very complex. Being a black man in this and growing up here in New Jersey, I recognize that. You have to refer to or address access to education, access to healthcare, access to maternal care, access to higher education because our tuition is too high, and also ensure, and then going back to on the police side, to ensure your law enforcement are there as protectors and not an occupation force. People have to trust and feel that the law enforcement is there to protect them. And that's just a few points, but that your question is so broad because it's systemic from all parts of societal issues. So education, healthcare, law enforcement, public safety, and other factors too. So all that has to be addressed if you want to get rid of systemic racism or address systemic racism in this country.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman, what would a Venieri Huddle law look like that would
Well, I
fix
actually
racial
have
injustice?
a couple of laws that would address systemic racism. And it's funny because a few weeks ago, we were at a rally and a couple of the speakers coming from Englewood, they knew Gordon as a police officer in Englewood, and they asked him where he's been to help protect them. And I will say this, that I'm one of the sponsors on a civilian review board. I don't think Gordon is on that bill. I will tell you that, Gordon, when you've been a police officer many years ago, the system has changed. And, you've had a couple of bills in there actually expanding qualified immunity. I'm on a bill to actually hold police accountable. And I think that, you can't have it both ways, Gordon. You can't continue to act like a police officer that you're not involved in trying to change the system. So I think if you join me in becoming a sponsor on the civilian review boards, that would be helpful. And I don't get the qualified immunity, why you would want to expand that, especially today. I mean, it's different than when you were a police officer, but police brutality and police protection, and we need to really do our best to protect the people in our community.
Thank you. Assemblyman, let me give you a chance to respond to that.
Thank you. First of all, I am on the bill for the Civilian Review Board. So I'm a sponsor on that bill, number one. Number two, no police officer that breaks the law should have qualified immunity. If he or she breaks the law or violates the rules and regulations, they should not have qualified immunity, and that's the story.
Assemblyman,
I'm glad you joined the bill, Gordon. Thanks. That's great. I guess you were called out last week. Now you're on it.
Assemblyman, let me ask you a follow-up to that. Last summer, the New Jersey Supreme Court struck down the granting of subpoena power to civilian review boards that are investigating police misconduct. Did the courts get that right or wrong?
Is that for me or for her?
That's for you.
That's for me. I believe that the way the bill's written in New Jersey, that's going through the system right now, I support. It requires that the review board would have to go to a Superior Court judge to get a subpoena. That makes sense to me. And as this bill's going through the process and that's in the bill, I support the bill.
And Assemblywoman, did the Supreme Court get it right or wrong?
Yeah, I also want, yes, I agree, but I also want to just get back to the Civilian Review Board, make sure that, Gordon, you're on that bill. But there's also another bill out there to allow police records to be opened. I want to make sure you join me on that too. And I just wanted to I'm sorry, David, would you ask the question again? Because I just want to get that out before I forget.
Sure. I want to ask specifically about the Supreme Court not allowing civilian
Oh, they got
review
that
boards to
wrong.
have subpoena power.
Yeah, no, they got that wrong.
Okay, thank you. Assemblywoman, last week, President Biden called for universal childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds. Do you support that for New Jersey? And if so, how would you pay for it?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my bill just had repeal of family cap, which was, I think, probably around since 1992. And we just expanded that. I mean, we repealed it because, if a family has more than one child, they need those credits. absolutely in favor of that. And I'm hoping now with someone new in the White House, we get those federal monies coming into New Jersey, and have also sponsored family leave. And so it's so important, especially during this pandemic, when we've had mothers and parents and single moms home with their children, trying to work and trying to get them on Zoom for schooling. It was a very challenging time. And I think we've learned a lot. And unfortunately, or I should say fortunately, because of the challenges that we went through, I think the need has exacerbated even more. So absolutely support that. And I think in New Jersey, again, with the expanded family leave, with the repeal of the family cap, I think we're on the right track for that.
Thank you. Assemblyman, let me get your position on universal childcare.
Yeah, I think that it should be considered a part of our economic vitality. In other words, if a person cannot go to work if the child is sitting at home, if the child is in a secure environment and a learning environment, so they can go to work, they then can make money, of course, to feed their family. So yes, I support that idea.
Thank you. And Mr. Johnson, New Jersey's moving toward electric buses, but there's also a resurgence of rail in the United States, especially among younger voters. Some view rail as a cleaner, better suited means of transportation to protect air quality. Does New Jersey need to step up spending on rail infrastructure? And does the Hudson-Bergen light rail need to make its way into Bergen?
Hey, David, that's a loaded question, but thanks for leading the witness. Yes, the Hudson-Bergen light rail system should come into Bergen County and into the 37th district. Yes, there's technology out there now where you have these locomotives are now electric. All right, they're doing electric. They're electric now, so that'll save the environment. So as we go forward with our mass transit system, we have to use the new technologies that are out there to ensure we have cleaner air and it's better for our environment. So yes, we need to spend on new technology, need to increase and increase our mass transit system, and also improve our mass transit system and make sure we're ready for our transportation needs in this century.
Thank you. Assemblyman, let me ask you the same question.
Well, absolutely, because the big joke up here is the Hudson-Bergen light rail. The Bergen part of it is not existing. You look at Bergen County, one of the most populated counties. Many of us, we sit in traffic. Sometimes we go from here to Teaneck. Sometimes it could take me 20 minutes. People work in the hospitals. People work in businesses. They need transportation, which, by the way, I'm so happy that yesterday, May 1st, was the first day that now, we have the immigrants getting driver's licenses. But, we can do so much better. Where is that piece to the Bergen light rail? We did the DEIS studies. We did the environmental impact studies, I should say. Where did those monies go? I think I stood up a few years ago in caucus. We saw some of those monies get reprioritized to other parts of the state. I will continue to be a leader for North Jersey, not have any monies flow other place. We should prioritize that because the Hudson-Bergen light rail has been on the agenda for, I was a freeholder in early 2000 fighting for this. I continue to fight for this, but we need to get our leaders in Congress. We need to get everyone together and make sure this is prioritized. Crucial.
Thank you. Thank you. Assemblywoman, one of the greatest differences between the state Senate and the General Assembly, as you know, is the unwritten power of senatorial courtesy. It allows a senator to block a gubernatorial nomination in their county, in their district. If you're elected, will you exercise senatorial courtesy? And is it time for a real dialogue on whether the practice should exist at all?
Well, first of all, it exists. I think it could be one of the main reasons why they're spending a lot of money against me, because I have an independent voice. It exists. I would base my criteria on qualifications and not make deals. Maybe that's the reason. I'm not sure, but I'll find out one day. I don't think it should exist. I don't think it's a fair system, quite frankly, because, there was also just an article, I think today in the Ledger, we talk about the lack of women in the legislature and voices. There's a lack of women on boards. And many of the boards that have women appointed, it's like Gail Gordon says, well, I was appointed to something soft, the arts, but she wound up loving it. But we have to make real change and real appointments for real effective people to serve on those boards, and not just the whim of a political pick, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman, are you for or against senatorial courtesy?
Well, the system is what it is that we have now. And as a senator, I would look towards using the rules that are there and what's there to ensure that we had more minority representation in Bergen County when it comes to Superior Court. And recognizing also that in the 37th district and in Bergen County, we had a major increase of Korean Americans in our district. So I think it was time to have or look towards a qualified Korean American man or woman who would like to participate or at least apply for this and look into their credentials and consider them to be on the bench in Bergen County.
Thank you. And Assemblyman, this may be a simple yes or no question. Should the New Jersey legislature continue to be exempt from the same Open Public Records Act that the executive branch and local and county governments must adhere to?
I think that the state legislature is a bit different than local and county government, but I would entertain the idea of maybe changing the rules somewhat in some way if I saw a bill in front of me that would do that.
Thank you. Assemblywoman, on that same issue.
No, I don't think we should be exempt at all. And I know that Senator Weinberg is still continuing to fight for Oprah, but leaves us out. Why should we be exempt?
Okay, thank you. So the winner of this election will be just the fourth senator from the 37th district in 48 years, since 1973, when New Jersey went to a 40 district map. There are only two other districts in the state that have had less turnover than the 37th. And many say that Senator Weinberg is irreplaceable, and that may well be the case, but people said that about Senator Feldman and Senator Baer too. Basically, your district has been represented by legislative titans for the last 48 years. And it seems to me that the reason may be that the last three senators were giants, that they were giants because of their ability to look ahead a generation and identify with the next big policy questions that New Jersey must grapple with. So my question is for each of you, and I'll start with Assemblywoman Venneri Huddle. What are your big ideas for the future, and how will you seek to fill those hallowed shoes of your predecessors?
Well, first of all, this district is a progressive district. And you're right. They were icons. Byron Baer, Loretta Weinberg, Maddie Feldman. It's funny, when I look at the groups that support me, they have supported Loretta in the past, Garden State Equality, Working Families, CWA, and so on. And, but I'm here to continue to be the voice for that progressive leadership in Trenton. It's easy to go down to Trenton and press a yes vote or a no vote, but you have to be in the trenches and you have to listen to the people and fight for the people and make those bold changes. The laws that I introduced, and by the way, were signed by three different governors, Corzine, Christie, Murphy. That's leadership, reaching across the aisle and making sure that those bills affect and impact communities that you can't say no to. So listen, I'm not here to be Loretta Weinberg. No one can fill those shoes. I want to go down as Valerie Huddle and be me and be the voice that I have continued to be the voice for everyone that I represented. Tough shoes to follow, but I want to tell you, I'm getting older. I don't think I'm staying that long in the Senate because I believe that there needs to be a bench behind me, like my two colleagues that I am opening the doors for. And I believe to building that bench and making sure everyone has an opportunity to get to that place.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, I want to hear how you're going to fill the legacy of Senators Feldman and Baer and Weinberg.
Thank you for the title, David, but I'm still running for that. And it's called Vision, and it's called speaking to the people in the district and finding out, and also throughout the state, we have to address our environmental issues in this state, as we try to get off fossil fuel. We need to ensure that this new industry called cannabis that's coming in, that Black and brown people and those individuals who are not left out of being a part of this new industry or industry in the past have access to at least apply to be a part of this if they so desire, and that's in the bill that we put forward. We want to ensure that we have environmental justice and economic justice for all the people in the state. We want to ensure that we have social justice, of course, and justice in healthcare when it comes to healthcare delivery, to not just to those who are middle class, but those who are less fortunate at the lowest spectrum of our income plane. So as we go forward with that, recognizing that this is a great state still, but we have to ensure that everyone is allowed to participate, whether it be in business, whether it be in access to education, whether it be access to healthcare, or whether it be taking care of the senior citizens, that all the folks are included when it comes to where we're going in the future. And that is part of the vision that I have in the state Senate.
Thank you. And at this point in the debate, it's time for each candidate to have an opportunity to ask one question of their opponent. So you'll each have 30 seconds to ask your question. Your opponent will have a minute to respond, and then you'll have a 30-second rebuttal if you wish. Assemblywoman Huddle, you're going to go first on the question.
Okay. Let me just, I don't know if the first question was answered on the misconduct and the sexual allegations. I think that the Assemblyman said he didn't remember. So I don't know if I want to ask that question again, but maybe, Gordon, if you want to answer that one more time, that you didn't, if you remember anything, and then I'll have a question. I don't know if that was answered.
I think that's your question, but go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead, Assemblyman. Let me ask you to answer that.
I don't remember.
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
I don't remember. That's the answer. And I reached out to Dr. Paul to get some clarification or get some understanding, but that's it.
Okay, and
It's not
Assemblywoman,
It's not me. So
the post in social media and the email doesn't refresh your memory.
that's been addressed already.
And there's nothing else that we should know. Okay.
Okay, Assemblyman Johnson, it's your chance to ask the Assemblywoman a question.
Okay, thank you. Going back to before, you champion yourself to be a progressive fighter for the middle class, but it seems to me behaving like a ultimate political insider, and you've received $45,000 in donations, which could be considered shady donations, from a developer who had an application in front of you and your husband on the Englewood Planning Board.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Gordon. Could you be more specific?
Okay, there was development that was put forth, and they had several donations that had come in from those who were involved in this, trying to get this development done. And the money.
A development guy, can you be specific and name it? Because I don't know. I take many donations from people. I don't take from super funded PACs by Republicans, but if you could be specific, then maybe I can answer the questions.
There were a number of donations that came in. It's a list of them that I'd seen earlier, but I do not have specific names right now. But we can.
Okay, well then I'm sorry, but I can't answer,
Okay.
a general statement of receiving $45,000 in donations. That's, I think.
Okay.
Those are the donations that I probably got raising money. However, I'd like to know, well, I'm not asking a question, but since you brought up the donations, David, can I have another second to ask?
Well, let's let's move on and you'll have a closing statement.
All right, but
Okay.
you know, Gordy's been up on TV now. He's got all this mail out. I'd like to know who those super fund PACs are being funded by. Not transparent. They look a little dark and secretive, Gordon. You know, the mail is not coming from friends of Valerie Huddle or friends of Gordon
Okay, but
Johnson.
I think there's only one question, so we'll
Okay.
move on and we'll be able to get to that.
Sorry,
everything
David.
later.
Thank you.
That's okay. Assemblyman Johnson, as of last week, 18,878 residents of your legislative district died from complications related to COVID-19. And admittedly, we could spend this entire debate on COVID issues. Maybe we should. And I apologize for the brevity in addressing what's probably the most dominant issue of our time. But my question, Assemblyman, is what has New Jersey done right? What has the state done wrong? And what do you as a legislator need to do to ensure that your constituents can recover from the social, the health, and the economic crisis that this pandemic has caused?
On the economic side, yes. Well, let's go back to the initial part of the question here. Many people have died. It's about 18,000 have passed on because of the COVID pandemic. Recognizing when it first hit us that we didn't know exactly how to treat it or how to take care of it. Had the administration in Washington had come clean, had told us when they knew what was going on, we probably could have saved some lives. But the Trump administration chose not to share it with the different states, with the states in this country. So therefore, we're left in the dark for about 30 or 60 days trying to figure out how to respond to this. Now, the New Jersey itself, Governor Murphy has, I think, his plan. He did the best he could with what he had, with the information he had. I think that now that supply is not catching up with demand, and we're going to, of course, get through this thing. However, it's also very important that we ensure that Black and brown people in the 37th district in the state of New Jersey have access to the vaccines. And realizing that there are some who are hesitant to participate in this, but we have to reach out through faith-based organizations like I'm doing now in the 37th district to ensure that there's vaccines available to all those in an area where they feel secure and safe. And a lot of people feel in their churches, so that's how that's how we're doing it. As for the recovery and the economic recovery, I'm sorry, I'm going along here. We have bills out there to assist to assist small businesses on Main Street, and also to hopefully keep them in business and keep get their employees back to work as soon as we can.
And Assemblyman Huddle, this is a very important issue, so I'll add extra time onto this also.
Yeah.
You know, David, and I can tell you that unfortunately, as a funeral director, I saw COVID deaths, you know, firsthand. Very challenging times, very challenging for people that were grieving, that did not have an opportunity to actually bury their loved ones. And under the circumstances, you know, I have to tell you, I applaud Governor Murphy for how he's protected the state of the people in New Jersey. I applaud his, you know, his vision. In the beginning, we were supposed to be influencers for the vaccine. And at the end of the day, we did not have enough supply for the demand, which means that people were getting vaccinated. And right now we have a good record. And I just want to say that, you know, my running mate, Javon Romney Rice, she's helping get COVID-19 in the arms of Black and brown community at the Rota Center in Teaneck. But I will tell you this, when it comes to our loved ones, so many challenges. We have suffered social isolation. I had a bill signed to make sure that when our families are in nursing homes and long-term care facilities because of the COVID, but also for future public health emergencies, they can stay connected to their loved ones. You know, Governor Murphy said, no, we cannot have good economic health without good public health. And that's what we tried to do, to make sure that our loved ones now are connected. Because I want to tell you something, the next big problem or crisis is going to be mental health. And I have always fought for, you know, parity in insurance for mental health and physical health. we are going to see an exacerbated amount of people suffering from depression. And, I'm going to Trenton to make sure that the resources are there for people that are suffering from mental health. But back to the long-term care reform, we had so many gaps in the system. COVID-19 exacerbated those gaps. I had nurses, aides calling me and telling me that they were wearing garbage bags because they did not have PPE. I thought so that for the second wave, because we started after we listened to the Manat report in May, we worked throughout the entire summer to make sure that bills were on the desk, on Governor Murphy's desk for the spike and the second wave in the fall. We're getting PPE now, protection. We have infection control in the nursing homes. And so again, these bills were written by me and signed into law by Governor Murphy.
Thank you. Assemblywoman, last week, Essex County ended its contract with ICE to hold undocumented immigrants at their county jail. Should such contracts be allowed anywhere? And is it the legislature's job to prohibit any county from entering into such an agreement in the future? And Assemblywoman, that's for you.
For me, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry. No, it's Assemblywoman Huddle. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I thought you said Assemblyman.
That's okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm opposed to renewing the contract. And, listen, I've had the concerns about treatment of immigration detainees if they move to other states where the treatment may be worse and where the families may not be in reach. But I cannot, in good conscience, support any renewal of any ICE contracts. And since Essex now is revisiting it, so is Hudson. And I'm hoping that Bergen will as well. So I joined Gordon on his bill, but I'm also calling on to strengthen it to completely end ICE contracts in New Jersey. And when we talk about, immigration reform, we have to continue to fight for our undocumented workers. And that's why I'm happy and proud to have the support of Make the Road. And I have been a supporter of making sure that immigrants' rights are protected.
Okay, thank you. And Assemblyman Johnson, let me ask you the same question about ICE.
Yes, I'm glad that the activists had come to my office seeking help, seeking relief from this. I sponsored some bills. I've written some bills or a bill to eliminate or at least end the ability of having detaining ICE detainees, people who have just overstayed their visa, and that because of that they're separated from their families and put into incarcerated in a money-making facility. So I was glad to see that Essex County was going to end it. I see Hudson County is considering ending it, and Bergen County only accepts ICE inmates who have been found guilty of a crime. Now, if you're found guilty of a crime, you probably should be incarcerated. I mean, if you're a threat to society. That I understand. That I get. But to incarcerate a person and separate them from their family because they overstayed a visa or some other code that's non-criminal they should not be penalized and kept in a cell for that. So I'm so glad that Hudson and Essex are ending their contracts with that. And also the bill does not allow private industry to open
Thank you.
the facilities either.
Okay, and Mr. Johnson, my next question is on guns. And both you and Assemblywoman Venneri Huddle have a grade of 0 from the NRA. 8 years ago, you attended a meeting of the New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and you said that Senator Weinberg was more liberal than you were on gun control issues. My question, Mr. Johnson, is Ms. Venneri Huddle more liberal than you on guns?
I don't think she's more liberal than me on guns, no. But let me say, we all know that gun violence in this country is an epidemic. New Jersey has one of the strongest gun laws in the country. And to keep our people safe, I think we're going in the right direction. So I do not feel that, and we have more gun laws coming, by the way, so I see. So I wouldn't say that she's more liberal than me on guns, but there is a realizing that our response to this epidemic that's going on in New Jersey, in the country, has not happened here in New Jersey. Hopefully, because of the laws we have in place now, and the bills, of course, that will be put in place as they go through the process of getting to the governor's desk.
Okay, thank you. Assemblywoman on guns.
Well, it's hard to have it both ways sometimes when you pander to the gun lobby. I've never pandered to the gun lobby. As a matter of fact, I have legislation to close the loopholes in state law, ensuring that victims of domestic violence are notified by police if a firearm is being returned. We've had too much gun violence. I marched with March of Our Lives. I took a group of young students to New York a couple of years ago. I marched with Moms Demand Action. I've sponsored many bills and trying to close those loopholes, requiring New Jersey judges to order domestic abusers to surrender their guns with 24 hours of a conviction. Again, as a funeral director, I've seen the fatal effects of domestic violence. I will tell you a quick story, but the first domestic violence victim was shot by someone, her ex-husband, that continued to be able to carry a gun. So these things stay with me. And that's, I see these things firsthand, and we need to continue to reform and make sure that guns are not in the hands of people that would obviously, continue to take a toll on the community.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and Assemblywoman Veneria Huddle, Governor Murphy has proposed an initiative to spend $50 million to provide 2 years of free tuition at 4-year public colleges and universities. So my question is this: does that go far enough, or should the state be offering debt-free college tuition for all 4 years?
Well, it'd be nice to offer debt-free college tuition. It would be nice to fund tuition. We have community colleges right now that we're trying to help our students make sure that they get a good education on to 4-year colleges. We were all struggling, especially during these challenging times. Debt-free, we need to make sure that, it's like college should be, a combination of high school or a continuation of high school today. We need to continue to fund, the EOF to help low-income students. Debt-free would be wonderful. We need to figure out how to do that.
Okay, Assemblyman Johnson, let me get your opinion on that.
Yeah, of course. Anytime you could provide an affordable education, higher education to students, it's good for society. It's good for the state. And also recognize what we have in place now in the state, where they can attend a community college and you're guaranteed a seat at a state 4-year school when you graduate. That was a system we have in place. We have the STARS, we have EOF and other programs that are there. So to take that a step further, like the governor's doing, is a positive, and you're investing in the future of this state and the future of the young people who reside here. And hopefully, when they get their degree, they stay here and work here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman Johnson, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just to follow up on colleges, and we also need to bolster our trades. We need to make sure that our tech schools also, because kids today, they have a lot of talent, and whether it's a college degree, technical degree, we need to make sure they have that opportunity to use it.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman Johnson, you have a borough in your district. It's called Rockley. Population a decade ago was 531 people. It's 1 square mile. It's 95% white. As of the last census, there were no same-sex households. None of the families there live below the poverty line. Rockley doesn't have its own schools. It doesn't have its own police department. What's the justification of Rockley being a municipality?
What's the justification of Rockley? I guess
Yes.
many years ago, some folks found it would be a great place to be a tax haven. I don't know. That's one of the towns that I very, very seldom go to, because it's just like you said, it's only 500 people there, and But the people reside there. We have home, as you know, we have home rule here. They're not taking money out of the system. They're actually paying money into the system. And I guess this is a little hamlet, if you want to call it, or a little town that where people like to live. Now, it's as you say, it's not a town where you're going to find many minorities there or different groups of people there. That's for sure. But I guess that's the way they want to live. So as long as that's what they want, and they have home rule and it's allowed, then I guess they're allowed to exist.
Okay, Assemblywoman Veneri Huddle, should Rockledge be a municipality?
Well, Rockledge obviously has more than just the residents. They do have a nursing facility there. They do have a county facility there. But I will tell you that Bergen County has 70 towns. And when I was a freeholder 20 years ago, we were trying to do shared services and mergers. And they just did not go well because of home rule. But, we call it multiple madness. When we want to talk about property taxes, we want to try to talk about, good economic growth. There's really no reason why Rockledge should be in itself a small entity. It could be part of Norwood, it could be part of Northville. We can start merging and sharing services. And quite frankly, if we don't have a vision or a blueprint to do that with 70 towns in Bergen County, we should start right here in Bergen County. We have tried, but we need leadership and we need everybody on the same page. And we actually need a blueprint and a vision. And, people are, I guess, if you say something, but you need to go out there and explain and talk to people and get their opinions. And when you bring people together and discuss it, that's what makes a difference. And maybe we can do that.
Thank you. So my final question before we go to the closing statements is this. It's not at all unusual for two members of the State Assembly to wait until a Senate seat opens up. The system itself, sometimes it's a petri dish of conflict and competition. Ought there be a discussion on the merits of single member assembly districts, maybe with half the number of constituents, the need for less money to run campaigns, perhaps causing less influence from party leaders in the selection of the candidates? And Assemblywoman Veneri Huddle, I'll ask you to go first.
So what was the question, David, as far as?
Should there be a discussion about single member assembly districts? Does this system of two assembly members representing the same constituency?
Look, listen, I think when we look at the census and we see the population, we want to see people in the people's house that represent the people. We've had 40 senators, 80 assembly members. I think at this point, when we have our census back, we represent our people well. I do believe that we should keep it that way if that's the way the people are, I guess, not used to. But I'm always open for reform and discussion. I will tell you though, working in the district, not only helping your constituents in the district, but working around the state, and 80 members, we get together, we caucus, we share our ideas, and we get things done. As far as when we go down there to vote, we vote on the majority of the policies and the issues, and I think that's how we represent our districts. We have 220,000 people in each district, represented by two members in the Assembly and the House and one in the Senate. I think that's fair.
Okay. Assemblyman Johnson, should there be a discussion about single member assembly districts?
I think the system as it is works for us now. We have approximately 220,000 people per district, as stated before. I think when you have two assembly people representing that many people, you probably need them. You probably need two assembly people representing that many people in a district. And also, let's keep in mind, David, that in the southern part of the state, where you have the same number of people in a district, it may cover like three counties. We're up here in the Northeast in Bergen County, we only have like 13 towns. So it's for proper representation, and also to ensure that the elected officials in that district reflect the diversity of the district, I would say you should have two folks in the lower house and one in the upper house.
Okay, thank you. So now it's time to move to your closing statements. I never get all the questions in that I had hoped for, but believe it or not, we're in an hour now. So Assemblyman Johnson, I ask you to deliver the first closing statement, 90 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, I I'd like to thank you, David, for putting this together. Thank you, Assemblyman Huddle, for your time and being here with me. And thank you everyone here for joining us this evening. As you may have picked up on, I'm not a self-promoter. I certainly understand that as part of the job description that and I really get it being on the ground, listening to my concerns of my constituents, joining them in their celebrations of heritage and supporting them in their times of crisis. My priority has always been the people of 37th District. The grassroots organizers and advocates in our Democratic Party supported me as their candidate for the race because I have proven over 20 years to be reliable and accessible and always willing to put the people I represent first. And that will not change if I become a state senator. Now, more than ever, we need to make real changes to our legislators willing to do the hard work. Valerie talks about being a progressive, but she was against the legalization of marijuana. She talks about being against the party establishment, but donated $75,000 to the county party in several years. Talks about breaking the glass ceiling, but the seat has been held by a woman for the past 16 years. Today, we have a long way to go to get this pandemic behind us, and Governor Murphy supports me because he knows I am the best person in the 37th District to get this done. To help with vaccines to our underserved communities, to do our hard work of rebuilding our main street, especially in the poor and low-income neighborhoods, and to bring greater equity to our criminal justice system, healthcare system, police reform, maternal care, child care, and green energy investments. I want to be the 37th District's next state senator because there's a lot of work to do, and yet we had to make this state a safer, greener, and more equal than it was before. So thank you again for allowing me to say a few words in closing, and I'll say good night, everyone.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Veneri Huddle, let me get your closing statement.
Thank you, David. You know, to me, elections should be just like any other job interview. The most effective candidate, the candidate with the best record, should win. I've led the way in protecting our environment, authoring the nation's toughest law to curb greenhouse gas emissions. And I've fought for our seniors, advocating for the restoration of property tax relief. I've also led the way in defending LGBTQ rights, authoring New Jersey's historic LGBTQ curriculum, inclusive curriculum law, and fighting to safeguard marriage equality. I've also been at the forefront for fighting for women's rights, authoring sweeping reforms to protect survivors of sexual assault, ensuring that they are treated properly when coming forward with their stories. I've also been a leader in defending reproductive rights, fighting to protect a woman's right to choose. And most recently, I led the way in keeping our loved ones safe in nursing homes, enacting long-term care reform in the wake of COVID-19. And in the face of rising tide of bias and hate crime, I fought for the passage of laws to protect our communities, providing places of worship with funding for security personnel and updating our statutes to reflect the new realities of terrorism and white supremacy. I don't just show up to cast my vote. I do the hard work of writing the landmark laws that make our state safer, healthier, and more equitable. And that's what a real leader does. And to me, the moral test of government is how one treats those in the dawn of their life, the children, the twilight of their life, the elderly, and those in the shadows, our most vulnerable. As your assemblywoman, I've passed that test. And as your senator, I will too. Thank you, David.
Thank you. And we are 37 days away from Election Day. So, I thank you both for participating. This was a lively discussion. I think debates are very important for democracy. So thank you for joining me. Good luck to both of you. Please stay safe and be well.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.